This show is a proud part of Recovered Life, a media network and peer support community dedicated to mental health and addiction recovery. We bring together expert voices, real stories, and a peer support community to help you live your best recovered life. Join us at recoveredlife.tv.
For a long time, I think a lot of us believed addiction was something that happened to other people. The guy under the bridge, the person who lost everything, and the person whose life completely fell apart. That's what addiction looks like in our minds, or at least looked like in my mind. And if somebody still had a job, still paid bills, and still showed up every day, then they couldn't possibly have a problem. But over the years, I realized something. Addiction, it's a lot more complicated than we were taught. Sometimes it looks chaotic, but sometimes it looks completely functional. Sometimes it's loud, and sometimes it hides behind a smile, a career, and a daily routine. So today, I want to talk honestly about addiction, what we thought it was, what it is actually, and why so many people suffer in silence because they misunderstand it.
Boomer in Recovery.
You're listening to Boomer in Recovery, the podcast about mental health and addiction recovery from a boomer's perspective. And here is your host, Cecil.
Welcome back. Now, let's be honest about how a lot of us grew up seeing addiction. We were shown extremes. Drunks in alleyways, people losing their jobs, families destroyed overnight. And yes, addiction can look like that. But because those were the only examples we saw, we missed all the quieter versions. I remember years ago hearing somebody say, well, he can't be an alcoholic. He goes to work every day. And back then, a lot of people agreed with that. Because in our minds, addiction meant total collapse. But what people didn't see was what was happening after work. Drinking every night, mood swings, isolation, and relationships slowly wearing down. Eventually, things did start collapsing, just slower than people expected. I think a lot of us misunderstood addiction because we were only taught the final stage, not the progression. Another thing we got wrong, we thought addiction was mostly about weak willpower. Like somebody just needed to try harder, be tougher, or get more disciplined. And listen, personal responsibility, it matters. It absolutely does. But addiction is bigger than just discipline. Because if addiction were only about willpower, a lot more people would quit the first time they promised themselves they would. I've seen people swear they were done, mean it completely. Hell, I've been there 100 times. I'd look someone right in the eye and say, I'm never going to do this again. And then weeks later, or days later sometimes, I'd be right back in it. Not because I wanted to destroy my life, but because that's just the way addiction changes your behavior, your habits, your thinking, your coping. A lot of addiction isn't about chasing pleasure anymore. It's about escaping discomfort. Sometimes addiction isn't about getting high. It's about trying not to feel low. Why do we misunderstand why people use? I think this one's huge. We assumed people were reckless, selfish, out of control. And sometimes people absolutely make destructive choices. But underneath a lot of addiction, there's usually something else happening. Trauma, stress, loneliness, even mental health struggles. The things people don't know how to manage. I remember talking with someone once who said, the first time I drank, my brain finally got quiet. You hear that? Got quiet. Think about that for a second. Quiet? For some people, substances don't feel like chaos at first. It feels like relief. Relief from anxiety, relief from emotional pain, and relief from racing thoughts. And that's why addiction can sneak up on people. Because in the beginning, it feels like it's helping. And honestly, I think a lot of people from my generation self-medicated without even realizing it. Because we didn't talk about mental health, but we sure found ways to numb it. Now let's talk about something that really confused my generation. Functional addiction. Because we thought if somebody still has a job, they're fine. But functioning and healthy are not the same thing. I've seen people hold careers together for years while quietly struggling. Nobody knew. Because externally, everything looked successful. But internally, exhaustion, dependence, emotional shutdown. Sometimes drinking just to sleep, and sometimes substances just to make it through another day. And eventually, even high-functioning people hit a wall. Addiction doesn't always destroy your life all at once. Sometimes it slowly steals pieces of it. Now, here's another thing we misunderstood, maybe the biggest. That's recovery. A lot of us thought recovery meant you quit once, you're fixed. But recovery is usually much messier than that. It's learning new coping skills, it's learning honesty, and it's learning how to sit with the discomfort of not using. And for a lot of people, recovery also means rebuilding identity. Because when substances become part of how you cope, you eventually have to figure out, who am I without this? Hell, I've seen people in recovery completely reinvent their lives, not overnight, sometimes slowly, one healthy decision at a time. Better routines, healthier relationships, actually talking about emotions instead of burying them. And honestly, that takes courage. Way more courage than people realize. Recovery isn't weakness. Sometimes recovery is the first truly honest thing somebody's done in years. Something else I want you to think about. Recovery, it doesn't look the same for everybody. Some people, they're fully sober. Others use treatment programs, and some use medically assisted treatment. I know there are strong opinions about all of that, but here's where I've landed personally. If somebody's life is improving, if they're healthier, more stable, more honest, then progress is progress. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is healing. They recover when they finally believe change is possible. So what did we get wrong about addiction? We thought it only looked catastrophic. We thought it was mostly about weakness. And we thought people should just snap out of it. But addiction is more complicated than that. It's pain, it's coping, it's silence, it's survival patterns that slowly became destructive. And recovery is people learning how to live differently, sometimes for the very first time. If this episode connected with you or reminded you of somebody you care about, share it. Because these conversations, they really do matter, especially for people who have spent most of their lives being told not to have them. I appreciate you being here, and we'll talk again soon. They recover when they finally believe change is possible.